Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. We are now in season 4 with over 1,300 videos that are being viewed and heard around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a senior professional turned entrepreneur from Singapore, Mr. Sharad Lal. Sharad, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ashutosh. It's a true honor to be on this show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Sharad is an entrepreneur and a podcaster, and he's worked in his earlier avatar with Procter & Gamble and BCG. So Sharad, let me start by asking you a few questions on coaching.
Sure.
Which is, and you use the brand MyLifeHouse. Tell me about what you do and the kind of work that you're doing in MyLifeHouse.
Sure. Ashutosh, maybe I'll give a little context of how this came about, which will make it very clear on what we're doing.
Yeah.
Back in 2013, I was an entrepreneur running my design business, which was doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was working in terms of plan. I had an achievement mindset. I'd done very well in school. I was stopped in school. Then I went to a top uni, St. Stephen's College in India, went to IMCAL, worked for a top class company like P&G, BCG, and then was an entrepreneur. So everything was going based on the plan that I had on my achievement mindset. And unfortunately, in 2013, I suffered a huge tragedy, a huge loss. And that kind of just broke my world. I went through a healing process for many years. And during that healing process, as I got deeper within myself, there was a huge motivation to live a life that matters, to make a difference, not just fritter away my life. And then I went searching for ways, what's the best way to live a good life? What does a happy, good life look like? And as I found certain tools and I started talking to my friends and other people, I realized something surprising, that even the most successful people, however well they're doing, often don't have it all figured out. So deep within, most people are struggling with something or the other, whether it's relationships or meaning at work or leaving an impact. And that showed me that this need to live a good life, to live a fulfilling life, is universal.
Okay.
And many people are looking for that. So that was the inspiration behind starting this. And that's how me and my wife co-founded MyLifeHouse. And we started with coaching to begin with, which was one-on-one coaching, because I myself had got a lot out of life coaching. And I thought that's a good way for people to understand their values and how they can live a life. So that was the starting point. And we scaled it a little more into going into corporates and talking about resilience, mental health, emotions, things that were not very readily talked about. And now after COVID, people are more and more keen to talk about that. And then the third pillar is the podcast. Okay. So through all this, our objective is in a small way to have an impact on people's life, which can help them in their journey to make their life more fulfilling and meaningful.
Fascinating. And given your amazing academic record, having worked for two of the major organizations in the world, entrepreneur, and then a personal setback, starting all over again, my question is, how has your background and experience supported your coaching philosophy, your style, and your values?
I think in exactly the way you mentioned, there are people who come to coaching for different reasons. And if I can simplify and classify it into two ways, some people come on the achievement path. How can I do better? How can I maybe become an entrepreneur or do better in my career? And having done part of that, I can understand where they're coming from, empathize with them, and then use the coaching tool. So that's one bit I bring in. And the second bit, having gone through something difficult and having gone through a journey where I had needed to face my emotions, thoughts, mental health, meditation, that entire land of fulfillment, I'm able to bring that as well. Often people are looking at integrating these two paths. So having done that, I'm able to, understand what their path is, sometimes even hold a mirror and let people. The other thing in coaching is you don't want to tell people what to do. So I can sit back, see how they go down the path, but often they're looking for advice and inspiration. I can share some of my stories or other people's stories, which then becomes useful from a background standpoint to everyone.
Very interesting. And were there any people who played a role in shaping the way you think today?
Sure. And especially as a coach, I think my family. So my mother, I recall she would, and I think many mothers are like that, she would tell me that I'm special. I can do anything. And I would believe that. And that developed in me a sense of confidence that I can go out and do whatever I want to, even things I didn't imagine.
Correct.
I bring that mindset to my coaching, where I hold my clients who I work with to a high standard, which they themselves sometimes are not aware of. And then giving them that confidence helps them go. So that's one trait I bring in. And my father had the big picture thinking. And quite often when people come to coaching, they're upset about small details and things going wrong, but helping them zoom out, look at the big picture and go on that path. So I think I bring that into the coaching as well. And my wife is very different from me. She has a sense of intuition, emotional understanding, language around emotions, which I think is very important in coaching as you're talking emotion, having the right language and intuition. So I bring that as well. So I think these influences have come into my coaching as well as who I am.
Fascinating. The other question that I thought I'd ask you, when I was growing up, and I'm much older than you, but I remember starting off in ITC in 79. And in those days, mentoring or that form of whatever form of coaching there was either done by a family elder or by a senior colleague who took a liking for you. What has evolved or changed in the world of coaching that people are now seeking professional help and are willing to pay for it?
Sure. I think that's a great question. And that's the beauty of coaching. So firstly, I think from a mentorship standpoint, like you mentioned, somebody who's senior and walked the path can show you. I think there's huge value for that, and that still exists, and people should seek that. I think what coaching does is helps people understand who they are, their authentic self. Correct. And the reason why it's good to go to an outsider, because often parents, society, friends, and the setup that you are in shapes you. And often when you're uncomfortable about something, it's this bit, which is of course helped you stay safe, is restricting your growth. And that's what you want to question. So having an outsider who you can do it with, who you can talk without fear, you can just bring out the exact thoughts. You don't feel bad about it, who holds the space for you while you explore this, and then helps you understand your authenticity, who you really are beyond all these influences. So you can build yourself back in terms of your value. So I think that's become really important now, where people are looking to be their authentic self, reclaim who they are, and then through that launch. And that's why I think coaching is becoming important, and in Asia even more so, because a lot of us have grown up with in collectivist societies where we're part of a whole, and now we're trying to figure out who we are as we're getting a little more individual, and then building ourselves up and having a better way of relating to others.
Interesting. So, I was talking to somebody a few days ago, and they said that coaching really started and gained a lot of traction in America. And the Americans know how to respect a coach and how to get the best out of a coach. Question I have for you, Sharad, is how does culture impact coaching?
Culture does have a huge impact. So I think my hypothesis on why it started in America and these countries is because coaching is individualistic. It starts from the individual and then says how you relate to others. Correct. And developed country, the culture is a lot more individualistic and then relating. So it did well. I think in terms of how culture affects as we go along, it's easier for a person from a developed country, but people from developing countries are struggling with, I love my family, I love people around me, but I still want to be my own person, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to move from compulsion in all these relationships to a place of love and actual connection. So I think in Asia, people need it more. Now, in terms of how does culture come in when you're actually coaching someone, it's interesting. Like when we started our platform, we thought, let's match. We had a platform of coaches and people coming to us, and we were looking at what's the best way to match a coach and a person. And we thought, let's match an Indian with an Indian, the right cultures. And when we did that with our learning, a few things, interesting things came. It's not necessarily people of the same culture can work best with each other. We in fact found that quite often Asians with Caucasians work really well, because what happens, and then our hypothesis is, and I myself have had Caucasian therapists and coaches, and I've seen this work. They do understand where we come from, but because they are very, the culture is slightly different, they do not stay with us and empathize with us in that land. So they do not necessarily provide so much of safety in that land. They are happy to then move us forward. They show the mirror to us in ways that in a very simple way, just they show the mirror to us on how we are thinking, which lets us understand the webs that we are tangled in, which then, of course, helps in growth. So I think when you have someone different, you can grow faster. When you have people with your own culture, you can feel safer, get into it. But I think growth can come, if I'm stereotyping, with someone from a different culture.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. What a great response. My next question to you, Sharad, is that the new leadership that's coming out in most organizations are millennials and Gen Zs.
Yes.
Um, based on your own interaction with them and senior leaders, how is coaching millennials and Gen Zs different from coaching much older leaders?
So I think the little that I'm not a complete expert, but the little that I've done, I think a lot of the millennials and Gen Zs that I've met are already a little more aware of who they are. They already know what they want. Of course, some people do call them entitled and those things, but they know who they are. They're a little more individualistic. They don't have too many barriers. So they, I think, are a lot more open to changes, to trying new things. I think the older we get, and me being old, it's a little difficult to unlearn and untangle and do things. So I think that's an advantage. Of course, they may not have gone through as a generation, if I'm against stereotyping, the struggles that a lot of others have gone through. So they might think they're entitled to a lot more, because of which hard work sometimes is a problem. Not everyone, but sometimes could be a problem. Whereas the older people understand that life does involve some amount of suffering and hard work, and are willing to put in the work. So I would say at a very generic level, these are the two things that play out.
Fascinating. So now let me move to your own journey. You did share with me a little bit about your journey. But for a person who was doing so well in P&G and BCG, what made you take the break and become an entrepreneur?
Right. So both are world-class organizations. But in my experience, while I got extremely good experience from both of these companies, one of the things I realized is in the corporate world, I wasn't in total control of my career, of my trajectory. And like I mentioned, I had a strong achievement-oriented mindset.
Correct.
And then it was like, if I have a bad boss, my growth could be delayed for 2-3 years. And the organization's not going to go, they'll take a few years to sort that out. Or if I'm in a bad assignment, again, growth could get restricted. Or if somebody has a bad strategy and I'm the one executing it, it may not work out. So what came to me based on my experiences is, firstly, I'm not totally in control. I was looking at something where I could be in control. I take the risk upside, downside. That was one thing. And the second thing was, a lot of these organizations, there's a lot of bureaucracy, paperwork, and I'm a lot on efficiency. So that was a little troubling. If I spent a lot of my time doing this kind of work, it didn't work for me. So at that stage, when I took the plunge in 2006, I was 29. I was single. So I thought, let me get into entrepreneurship. Let me try this. I had actually tried entrepreneurship a little earlier when I was 23, which was the dot-com era in Delhi. I started a dot-com, and I unfortunately went bust in 9 months, and then I went to business school. But with that backdrop of entrepreneurship, this time I was very keen to create a business which was a lot more cash flow intensive. It wasn't like a 0-1 game. Like in 10 years, it could become like a really big unicorn or nothing. Because I was looking at life holistically, that maybe in a few years I might want to get married. So I'm looking at a field where cash flows can come, I can get married, I can move forward in life. So with that context, I went about to entrepreneurship and the kind of business that I set up.
Fantastic. And, one of the things I have heard from so many different people, whether they're graduates out of business school or graduates out of any other undergrad education, everyone wants to be their own boss, right? My question to you, at what stage should one think of giving up? And mind you, I've been hearing people say, I want to be my own boss from the time they were 35 to the time they were 60. So at what stage should one think of saying, I want to give up my regular monthly salary and, start off on my own?
Right. So I think from a learning perspective, there's a lot that you can learn in a company. Maybe I gave up a little too early. There's a lot more you can learn in leadership, in scale, that is difficult to get as a startup. So if that's an area, you could go further. But on the flip side, it gets more difficult to take risks as you go later. So my approach to this would be to look at life holistically. Where are you in life right now? Can you take the risk? if that's the urge coming to you to be an entrepreneur, can you take the risk from a money standpoint? For example, I was single, it was easy for me to do. If you're married, do you have like 2 years of saved up, or your wife is working, because of which you can take the risk? What is that dependency? What is the dependency on your time? Is it like if you've just had 2 kids and you are needed in the house, and you're like a equal share kind of husband, then it's a difficult time to take the risk. So looking at your life holistically to see where you are, because it's not just one decision, it's one that falls into part of a whole. And then seeing whether it is okay to do it or not, if the urge is coming from you, and then making that decision and making it happen. But of course, having a timeline, because we again live in the real world. Maybe people need you back. The world needs you back. Your parents, your family need you back after 1 or 2 years. So if it's not working out, you can go back.
Fascinating. And, I made the transition from a professional to an entrepreneur when I was 46. You did it when you were 29.
Yes.
What were some of the challenges you experienced?
Right. In mine, of course, the challenges that many people talk about, the stress levels suddenly increase, even though I wasn't doing more work than I would do, because I was trying to create work, trying to create a business, but the stress was a lot more. Am I doing the right thing? The confidence, which I think was reasonably high earlier, took a beating that maybe I've done the wrong thing. Maybe I'm trying something else. That was there. But I think the biggest thing I faced was isolation. And at that stage, when I started the company, I was sharing a house with a friend, a 3-bedder, and one of the bedroom was my office. So most of the day I would be at home. This was back in 2006, where I didn't know any other entrepreneurs as well who were doing it. So I was isolated in the home, trying to do some work. I did not want to go out for lunches with too many people, because money was also an important thing. Did not want to spend too much. So that made me quite a bit isolated. And then after some time, I said, I have to find ways to go out, maybe even if it's business meetings or whatever, to interact with people, to get some ideas going. So to me, the biggest challenge was isolation.
Fascinating. And based on a lot of people you may have met who've made this transition where things may not have worked out, the question for you is, what happens if the plans as an entrepreneur don't work out?
Right. So I feel as an entrepreneur, I like this book on lean startup, which is the mindset should be, at least for the first 1 year, your plans will keep shifting. It's not like what you start off is what you do. So you keep shifting, you keep pivoting, you keep trying. So maybe in 3 months, what you wanted to start looks very different. In 6 months, it looks even more different. So if plans are not working, we have to keep shifting, because it's a lot about trying versus sitting in one place, thinking, planning. It's about, that's the opposite of the corporate world, because we don't want to be completely risk-free. We want to try it out. It doesn't work, try something. Doesn't work, try something. So that's the first thing I would say. Plans are not going to work out. Keep trying things. If overall, over a period of time, you've given it a lot of shot, and that's your time frame. If you put a 1-year time frame, 2-year, depending on everything else in life, or even 5-year time frame, if it doesn't work out, then it's putting your ego out there and saying, I've given it a shot. It's not working out. Let me go back, because maybe the money is needed, maybe other things are needed, and I can always give it a shot after a few more years. That's fine, but it's not like I'm closing the chapter. So it's calling out when it's time to let it go.
Well said. So I've got time for 2 or 3 more questions. I'm going to now move to a few questions for you personally, because my viewers and listeners love to get to know my guest a little better.
Sure.
Sharad, in such a successful life so far, and you're probably just 40 or 41 years old, what would you say are 3 key milestones in your life or your career?
Right. That's a difficult one. So if I just think about it, I think what really had an impact with me, I think getting into IIM Calcutta was a big milestone for me. I'd looked up to my uncle who went to IIM Ahmedabad and people who'd gone to IIM, which was, it was like, all right, I have in the big scale done reasonably well. So that to me gave me a lot of confidence. I feel starting a business, especially at the early stage, which became profitable in year 1, was another big milestone. I was in a different country, Singapore, went about, created it. I think that was a huge milestone from a career standpoint. And I think the third milestone was this new project, which I'm creating on MyLifeHouse, which is a lot more purpose-driven. So earlier, it was a lot achievement-driven. This was more purpose-driven, my heart and soul into it. It's a different experience. And having done that and in the process of doing it itself is a milestone.
Fascinating. My next question to you is, for someone who has been so successful in virtually everything that you've done, what does success mean to Sharad?
I failed a fair bit. Ashutosh, let me just put it. Many startups we haven't. I've had a few other startups, and I've failed a fair bit out there, and
Okay.
of course, many failures. But in terms of success, I think my definition has changed. It, of
Mm,
course, earlier used to be a lot more achievement oriented, but I think my definition is success is around living a fulfilling life.
mm,
And for me, a fulfilling life is to know what your values are, identify them, and
mm,
it's fulfilling those values. So it's a holistic life, whether your values are around relationship, being a good father, a good husband, doing intellectual stimulation that's always there, uh, serving others, growth. So living your values, and that's your internal
mm,
compass. Living your values and doing it feels the kind of energy you get out of it is a lot more deeper and fulfilling. And I think that to me is success.
fantastic. Time for two more questions. Who or what inspires you?
This is interesting actually. Thinking of death inspires me because it tells me how little time we have,
Hmm.
and it also tells me that it also helps question what is really important in life, and
Hmm.
having that lens towards life, uh, that you're here for a period of time. What are you doing? That is the one thing that inspires me to be to do a lot more in terms of finding fulfillment and growing and areas. So it's a dark answer, but that's
No,
the
no,
truth.
it's a great answer. It's a great answer. I was talking to someone the other day, and I'm 65, and this person was saying that she told her husband, who continues to travel, saying we only have 1,000 weeks left. And that
Exactly.
inspired her husband to say, okay,
Exactly.
more time at home now, because that's 20 years. But my last
Exactly.
question,
That's the way.
last
Yeah.
question to you, Sharad, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. What would your advice be to a young individual starting off on her or his journey in the corporate world or as an entrepreneur?
Right. So I would like them to think about these two mindsets. There's the achievement mindset, which we talked about, which is all about, which is how we've grown up.
Mm,
Success from childhood, as we get success, um, people praise us, that gets reinforced, and we try pursuing success. It's
mm,
tangible. We know what we're doing. People can see it. But
mm,
there's another mindset available, which is the fulfillment mindset. And it's difficult because it's internal. It's also difficult because it's about fulfilling our values. We often don't know what our values are. We don't
yeah.
even know when they're fulfilled. But when you do that, the happiness that you get is deep.
Mm,
My advice to people who are young is not necessarily move from achievement to fulfillment, but be conscious of what you're doing. If at this
mm,
stage you're on the achievement path, that's fine. Go
mm,
all out, do it, but do it consciously.
mm,
Maybe at some stage when you have achieved a fair amount, you get the opportunity to do the fulfillment mindset where you maybe created enough nest in terms of earnings, in terms of other career growth, that you can choose to do other things in terms of fulfillment. But whatever you do, it's being conscious that these are mindsets available to you and
mm.
making a conscious decision, which of course increases happiness and makes you feel more fulfilled.
Oh, wonderful. Sharad, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your journey, about all your thoughts on coaching. Thank you for talking to me about your achievement mindset and the fulfillment mindset. I think all our viewers and listeners do have some serious thinking to do based on all your thoughts. And finally, what inspires you is something I've never heard of before. And it's the first time someone has actually told me death inspires me. And because of the time we have left. And what you said is so, so, so true. And as I think about it, you're probably right. Thank you again for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Ashutosh. Thank you for having me in this conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.